Thank you very much, colleagues, for the welcome. Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me the opportunity to contribute on the appropriation bill before us. Madam Speaker, as I begin my presentation, I also acknowledge that it is a privilege and a pleasure to contribute yet again on an appropriation bill. And in the circumstances I find myself in, not for the first time, to speak as the last proponent of the Opposition United National Congress. I begin as the last speaker to congratulate the first speaker, the Honourable Member for Siparia, on her comprehensive, detailed, policy-oriented and solution-oriented presentation in this budget debate. And I will touch on some of those matters in a few moments. Madam Speaker, if I was to observe what has happened here over the last few days, it has been a battle. It has been a battle between character and characters. On the one hand, on the opposition bench, I've listened to all my colleagues and so on, and we have had the character of a very strong, policy-oriented, problem-oriented, solution-driven presentations by all my colleagues on this side. I cannot identify or single out anyone because they have all been so rich in research and content, in delivery. So we have had that character on this side. Madam Speaker, on the other side, we have had characters. This budget will be memorable for another reason. Because we have had persons speaking before us, and even the speaker before me, my colleague of long time, I was warned by some of my colleagues on this side that the strategy was to put me in a trance and have me halfway asleep and half me awake before I speak. But that will not happen. It will not happen, Madam Speaker. But we heard from the other side, and what were their solutions? On the one hand, the Minister of Finance advanced digitalization, technology as his centerpiece of development. And then the colleague from Port of Spain South told us, look here, given all of this crisis, we can go back to the coal pot. But my colleague, the gentleman from Port of Spain South, ignoring the member for Arima and her presentation a few moments ago, that coal is the most polluting form of energy. It intensifies climate change. It is a high pollutant. And it cannot reflect on the goodly gentleman from Port of Spain South that he would promote, the use of fossil fuel that will destroy the environment and pollute and denigrate the environment. I don't think he meant that. He also alerted us to the idea of going back to the bicycle. And it is fine. I mean, I studied in Holland for 6 years, and it was the main mode of transportation. I encourage my friend from Port of Spain South that he should do that, but you should also ensure that you have a saddle on that bicycle. We have heard from other members, the member for San Fernando East, who was particularly, and I say with love, disappointing, because I had great memories of being in the house with his father, who never rose on a point of order to be overruled. And Madam Speaker, when the great Patrick Manning rose, it was to make an important intervention. It was to contribute to a debate. It was to point out, even to chastise the opposition members and so on, or the government members, as the case may be. Our friend from Tobago East followed the Minister of Finance by creating 6 fictitious phantom masqueraders and quarreling with them. The Minister of Finance in his speech has developed this habit now of when he delivers the budget, he tells you all the people who give him bad advice. But he never tells you anyone give him good advice. And then he attacks these people without calling their names as giving him poor advice. So we have had that. Well, our friend from Tobago West, I think, would probably take a prize. This member for Tobago West, in the context of the debate in the budget, inside or outside, called upon persons to sacrifice. And it was quite instructive, Madam Speaker. The member for Tobago West called upon us to sacrifice, notwithstanding the member receiving a quite deserving $54,000 a month package, along with 85 free tickets to Tobago. and had just a couple months ago collected a handsome payment of $530,000 in gratuity, which was, placed in that Louis Vuitton purse. But called on us to sacrifice, and I am sure the member is sacrificing in her own good way. The member for Dabadi O'Meara referred to the Minister of Finance as a genius. And to her, he must be. He must be. She said the Minister of Finance is at the end of a tunnel. If he's at the end of a tunnel, I pray that a train is not coming in his direction. So we have had these characters coming through. And we spoke about it before Petrotrin didn't close down and so on. And of course, the Minister of National Security, who I intend to deal with in a few minutes, the portfolio of national security, came and gave his presentation. And sometimes I honestly feel that wisdom is chasing him, but he's running faster. Wisdom is chasing him, but he's running faster. I feel so. Gave a presentation and at no time outlined any new policy initiatives to deal with crime. At no time, former ministers of national security will come to the House and read statistics to demonstrate, you could do anything with statistics. In fact, you can even tell the truth if you want. Read statistics to tell us that, the murder rate is going down, serious crime is going down, detection is going up, maybe larceny is going down, maybe littering is reducing. No such statistics to tell us anything from the Minister of National Security. None. But he told us it's a holistic approach. So when you give grants, you solve crime as well, by giving grants and so on. So we have had to contend with that. We have had to contend with other members. My friend, I think from Lopino, Bonaire West, that Minister of Public Utilities, admonishing the population to refrain from eating ham and macaroni pie and so on. Well, that will certainly save us, I think. But these are the characters that more frighteningly form the cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago. And that, to me, is something we worry about. But having said that, Madam Speaker, it was a battle between character and characters. When this was happening, the Prime Minister, of course, was attending an art exhibition and so on. When the opposition leader was speaking about diversification, sectoral development, policies in various areas to attract foreign direct investment, the opposition leader spoke of the importance of trade policy linked to investment and the importance of investment linked to employment. That was the point. We had to listen to the Minister of Finance and others about him speak on really what are trivial matters. The member for St. Joseph came to the House and confessed that he was abused with expletives and so on in his constituency. I told him he should not go in his constituency if that's the case. We have had this situation, Madam Speaker, and the people, while we talk in the Parliament and we make all these speeches and so on, what are the people saying? Madam Speaker, I know they don't like to hear editorials, and I will certainly not quote editorials because I'll take too much time. But if you look at the editorials in the aftermath of the budget, September 26, speaking out is not misbehavior in relation to the Prime Minister's statement. September 29, the miseducation of Shamfa, referring again to the member. September 25th, immediately after the budget, Imbert's painful budget. And it began with ignoring last year's complaints. Finance Minister Coleman, but scraped everything he could to find into another budget, was long on talk, short on strategy. Our next headline told us, time to end talk and implement. Look here, October 1, cut the old talk and deliver. So the people are saying this, the newspapers and so on, but the people are with placards outside. The day of the budget, the day of the opposition leader's response, there were placards outside. And it will happen again and again to this government because the people are speaking. Like the member for Sama Barataria, I was certainly perplexed when I saw this Imbert, HYMC, is it? And he alerted us today of what that would mean. I thought it was a message to the Minister of Finance, an early greeting. Have yourself a Merry Christmas. I thought it was an early greeting, but I could not believe, Madam Speaker, that the people will come at the Parliament and protest in this manner. My friend from Toko, Sandy Grandi, he spoke earlier. All I could say, Madam Speaker, is I was in the tea room, and when he was speaking, I noticed from the television, he was really confusing the sign interpreter communicator who's somewhere right here. He was confusing. They couldn't understand exactly what he was saying. Madam Speaker, in this budget, there was no hope. There was no central guiding light, vision in this budget. Now, it is a rare degree of incompetence to speak for 4 hours and be accused of not having detail. Rare. And I will focus first, as I go along, Madam Speaker, on the issues relating to housing. Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finance, of course, spoke on the issue of housing. And we have, of course, his statement. But, Madam Speaker, it is in that area that they have found the most problems in implementation, in execution. I listened to the budget with fanfare announcement of giving out 39 houses and 239 in 1 year. Madam Speaker, when we were in office, we gave out 100 housing units per week. 100 per week. They put in the budget statement, they give out 239 in 1 year. In a year. Then they speak about, I couldn't believe I was hearing this, about 6,000 recipients of the 2% and 5% TTMF interest rate. Madam Speaker, it was the Manning administration in 2006-2007 that introduced the 2% interest rate. It was the Bissessa administration in 2014 that introduced the 5% interest rate. It was for both public and private housing estates. So persons who qualify with 1 million or less, or 1 million and more, as the case may be, they can go on to the TTMF, they even buy private property from a private estate. It was the Manning administration did the first one, and the Bissessa administration the second one. Never the administration, but putting in the budget to boast about this as if this is an achievement of some sort. Madam Speaker, I have received some information from the housing sector, the Ministry of Housing and so on. I have in my hand a centerpiece of their policy agenda for the last 3 or 4 years has been this matter of public-private partnership. Now they speak as if this is new. It is not new. It is not new. In the housing sector and in construction, we have had private-public partnerships for years and decades and so on. But, Madam Speaker, under the partnership, we had a housing settlement in Carlton Lane, San Fernando, in collaboration, I believe, with Republic Bank. When they came into office, they terminated that arrangement. They ended, had the entire site suspended works, had it abandoned, and 5 years later announced a next private partnership with the next bank. It was the same policy. And they have been talking about this all over the place, private-public. I have in my sheet, in my hand, Madam Speaker, a sheet. PPP project status report. Project information from the Housing Development Corporation. And Madam Speaker, it makes for interesting reading. Madam Speaker, when you look at these projects here and you look at what has happened in the period 2020 to 2022, up to date in some cases, you look at it, and I will not call the names of contractors. 1 or 2 I may have, because it's very suspicious, but I not generally want to do that. Madam Speaker, when you look at the spreadsheet here I have in my hand, PPP projects status report, this is an official document from the HDC. This is not something we type out somewhere and bring here. Current settlement, current, they have the name of the contractors. Look at the problems, project status, current site status, statutory approvals outstanding. Contractor has several defects to be addressed. Producing just 22 units, but could not deliver 22 units in 2 years. Madam Speaker, you look at another project in the current area as well, another part of the estate. Contractor has been delinquent in completing works on time and acquiring statutory approvals. No delivery recorded. You know, they're building 10 units there. 10 units. Next one, let's move. there's a contractor here, I will not call the name. This contractor, this business cannot be found in the company's registry as a registered contractor, a registered business, so to speak. Cannot be found. And when you look at it, incomplete works, delinquency on the job, and recommendation to terminate. Madam Speaker, we go through again. In another part called Riverside South, construction of townhouses, another contractor named, have it here. This contractor is registered as a contractor, as a company through the Companies Act. But I had to ask my colleague Sawa Barataria to check it for me because I couldn't believe it. In the registry, there are documents suggesting that this company took a mortgage from a bank to buy backhoe and tractor and a Mercedes-Benz, interestingly, a Mercedes-Benz. They took a mortgage to buy Caterpillar equipment. So they're owing a bank money. It is registered against them in the company's registry. Here are the comments on this one, Madam Speaker. Contractor has informally suspended work on site due to financial constraints. I guess that's because they have to pay for the equipment and the Mercedes-Benz. Contractor is behind schedule and has significantly reduced his workforce. So the people go on to. 2021, HDC informed the contractor to suspend all construction works during a period due to the lack of delivery. Again, you look at it again, statutory approvals not granted in certain cases. Madam Speaker, they recruited companies that themselves owe debts to banks and so on, because what happened here, I know what is going on. You take a company that has done nothing in housing, that has never built anything, and when they get the contract, then they go to look to buy equipment. And if they can't buy privately, they go to the bank, take a loan, and it comes as a mortgage they are paying every month. This happened prior to 2010. And you know that these contractors are doing the 44 house, the 10 house, the 20 house, whereas the real approach, the model, is to let your estate go through a proper process. The contractors who are building homes will then hire subcontractors, and that will be their responsibility to manage that. But the HDC undertakes to manage everybody building 2 housing units, 5 housing units, 10 housing units, and this is what happens. All of these programs crash. Madam Speaker, another one in Malabar, problem with WASA outline approval, problem with fire approval, problem with sewer connections, problem with water connection, and it goes on and on. So the PPP project that they are boasting about so much, Madam Speaker, has more or less collapsed against a situation where they cannot deliver. And this policy has more or less failed, except in 1 or 2 occasions they have delivered. But it's very instructive to know when they deliver, how they deliver, and who is delivering, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I have another HDC document in my hand called IDF. The IDF is, of course, the Development Program Funds Project Status, Madam Speaker. Project Information, Project Status. And this is not PPP. This is the project status for several projects there. And Madam Speaker, Bonnet North, Aruka, HDC construction of mixed family units. And they give the size and so on. Contractor NH International Limited. Madam Speaker, it's very instructive that the HDC and the Ministry of Housing, etc., owe this contractor what they claim to be significant amount of monies, millions of dollars and so on. And they were not paying. They were not paying this contractor, and I imagine several other contractors, not this contractor alone. But they have an interesting project status here. Works continue to be suspended. However, on August 17, 2021, a site visit was conducted by the Prime Minister, and HDC will now submit a cabinet note to request funds to complete works. This is startling. So somebody is complaining that they're not getting payment from the HDC. Not getting payment, as many contractors not getting payment. The Prime Minister, they have, of course, no approval. Work suspended, but a site visit is conducted by the Prime Minister, and a cabinet note comes out of this to request funds to complete the works, detention ponds, etc., etc. Claims have been assessed, and additional charges due to the company were in the vicinity of, I don't know if this could be right, 571 million. Madam Speaker, let me say 57 million. I don't think it's 571 million. Finance charges, $3 million. Suspension claims to be assessed, Madam Speaker. Checks collected and so on. You know, so what is the Prime Minister's role in this business? Go around to every site so you could get payment for contractor? That's the role? And I'm coming to Tobago in a few minutes. I'm coming to Tobago. We have heard from the Chief Secretary there, coming there. Another project, Bonitento. Sewer connections for these units. No progress. Water connection, no progress. And this reminded me in the 2010 period when we came in current in San Fernando, they had a situation where they gave out keys before the elections. Persons got their keys. And when they went in the home, there was no sewer plant anywhere. So I think Jolene, the managing director, had to make arrangements privately to go and collect waste every single day from that community because they had no sewer plants in place. Carlson Field, another phase, 3D Shaguanas, contractors' progress on site is currently behind schedule. That's the update. Carlton Lane, San Fernando, I told you about that is also facing some problems. Outstanding homeowner defect works to be addressed. Remediation work required. Now this is fascinating. This has not finished yet, but they're doing remediation works. Normally that comes after you hand out homes, you have the remediation works and so on after. So, Madam Speaker, I can't go through all of this. I have other things to do here. But to tell you that the PPP program has crashed. The reason that they cannot deliver and cannot generate the construction sector as an engine of growth is because these mega state enterprises, HDC, UDCOT and so on, have crashed. They cannot deliver. They have weak management, incompetent management, and they simply cannot stand up and deliver on their projects. Today I will not have time to speak about the Port of Spain Central Block. The Minister of Health always boasting that the former government didn't know that the whole Central Block collapsing. And we did nothing, and they came into power and they dealt with it. They dealt with it, and the contract with Shanghai Construction for $1 billion collapsed as well. And everywhere along that process in tendering, Madam Speaker, you have had problems. Every point, up to putting up the crane tower. They advertise for a company to bid to put up the crane tower. One company bid that has a track record. They tell the people, you forget that, we'll give somebody else. That Central Block is a cause for another commission of inquiry like Las Alturas. And it is on a new site, not the old site. They did not demolish anything and break it down. They put it on the next site, on the compound. Madam Speaker, UDCOT again strikes. So we had to endure this. So that is in the world of housing. And you know, the member for Laventille West told us, he says, they have been in office for 7 years and no scandals and so on. No scandal to report. But I want to ask the member for Laventille West, I know he is prone to taking a little nap every 3 hours. I know he's prone to having, regular siesta and so on. He's prone to that. And it may well be important for his, system. I want to ask him if he remembers the Malcolm Jones $1 billion withdrawal, the case withdrawn against Malcolm Jones that crashed Petrotrin. The E-Tech case, $35 million withdrawn. The roaming charges of our friend from Tobago West. The Darrell Smith scandal, Central Diego Martin, where we still don't have the facts there. He remembered the 210 cabinet recusals. There are people who have, I think they recuse themselves for every cabinet meeting in 1 year. The member for Laventille West said they have no scandals to talk about. And we can continue with that, but again, that is not my purpose here, Madam Speaker. My purpose here is to get on to some other business. Madam Speaker, in the area of works and transport. Now, we heard from our friend, the Minister of Trade, and I don't like disturbing or bothering the Minister of Trade and Industry. I just don't like doing that. When the minister came here, the minister is a guest in our house and we must treat guests appropriately. But it's fascinating. When the minister was delivering her statement on good trade policy and investment, Linda Bakery announced that they permanently closed 2 branches. When she was speaking, I think they issued a statement. So one is speaking about how good business is doing. A statement come, we just closed down 2 branches, one Citygate and one Princestown. Madam Speaker, that is the sham that we have to deal with. I will just touch quickly Tobago on works. Madam Speaker, on Thursday, 20th September 2022, and the member for Laventille West should listen. A devastating bombshell statement was delivered by the Chief Secretary in Tobago, in which the Chief Secretary addressed a matter of audits being done in Tobago. 5 audits, but they have preliminary information, results and findings from a few, 1 or 2. And Madam Speaker, if you read this dated Thursday, 20th September 2022, they have concluded, Madam Speaker, that in those matters, they have had cases where cost estimates went up on a few projects, 1 or 2, by $32 million that they cannot explain over there. Madam Speaker, they are naming companies across there now that may be involved, Madam Speaker, in those matters. In those matters, Madam Speaker, they had a fascinating development. You know, over here they like to talk about contract administration and bid rigging and collusion and conspiracy. They did a random survey or a random sample of the projects in Tobago. And 54% of the cases that they studied, the contractor came in with the exact estimators of the engineer. Where in the world that happens that an engineer, they do what is called an engineer estimate, and it is, let's say, $97,523.20, and the contractor come in with $97,523.23. Where is that happening? Where is that happening? It happened in Tobago under the PNM. It happened in Tobago under the PNM. There is one road in particular was paid $15 million as a complete road. When they went to look for the road, they cannot find the road. Nobody lives there. $15 million gone. They're looking for that. They should find the ACIB and find SRP Kate and put them on the case in Tobago. Madam Speaker, what are they doing? And of course, inferior materials they used and hodgepodge here and there, and the hot mix wasn't the right quality requirements, and the price was changed and so on. But Madam Speaker, they are dealing with $75 million in fraud in just 2 contracts, not 5. And they haven't come to the one I'm interested in yet, agriculture access road. Because there was a time we stood in this house, and when we hear money passing for access road in Tobago agriculture, we thought they're building a road to Jamaica with that kind of money. So Madam Speaker, I leave that there and move on. The Minister of Finance. Today, this Minister of Finance, Madam Speaker, I did not expect him to be here today. I did not. I thought he would have received a phone call from the Prime Minister's office indicating that the member for San Fernando East, for better or for worse, had been appointed as Minister of Finance. And the Prime Minister would have thanked him for his service. I have in my hand, Madam Speaker, I have in my hand a judgment, hot, burning in my hand, October 4th, 2022. That is today. A few hours ago, the High Court of Trinidad and Tobago, and I want to do it quickly before they appeal when I talk in, and then stand up and tell me it's sub judice. So, let me get out this quickly. And Madam Speaker, we will need a judiciary parliamentary liaison officer to deal with them, huh? Because we can't take their word now when they say sub judice. Samuel Bartari has proven that. Let me do it quickly. Madam Speaker, in this matter, I will tell this story instead of reading this lengthy judgment here. What happened is the Minister of Finance positioned himself on an interviewing panel for the chairman of the Board of Inland Revenue. You ever hear a minister on an interviewing panel? Minister go to screening committee in Balize House and headquarters and so on. He went on an interview panel for chairman of the BIR, bypassed 3 or 4 persons who were assistant, deputy, next in line, recommend someone to take the job, go through the process of telling the president to appoint, president appoint, president appoint. The person who was next in line, who took this case against him, Madam Speaker, he then said, the Minister of Finance and said, listen, I have some bad reports about you. We can't go forward. The court ruled that he violated the principles of natural justice, violated principles of the law, acted arbitrarily, illegally, illogically. This is a ruling of the court and a finance minister. This is not the treasurer of the village council. This, Madam Speaker, not the treasurer, of the cricket team. This is the Minister of Finance. He has his clause on the treasury, on the door, Madam Speaker. And the court of law has ruled that his decision is null and void, that he came to them and they could not believe him because he gave evidence. He deposed, and to instruct you, the lawyers in this matter, I must commend them for standing up for the rights of citizens. Mr. Dinesh Rambali, Mr. Kyle Taklal Singh, and Mr. Stefan Ramkisoon. And I have to call the lawyers for the defendant as well, in all fairness. Mr. Martin Daly, Senior Counsel. Mr. Christopher Suchan, instructed by Mr. Shashi Indar Singh. No relation to the member for Kuva South. Can't be. He was on a losing team. So, Madam Speaker, this here is the budget debate. This is the finance bill. Because if the court of law cannot believe the finance minister, how can the parliament believe the finance minister? How can the population believe him? This is the basis for his resignation or dismissal. This is why I was shocked to see him in front of me today, Madam Speaker. And he went, this minister is phenomenal, to say the least. He told the court that this person who he bypassed, they have bad reports, that person could be arrested. When they reached there, they realized with nobody arrested, nobody is a suspect and nothing and so on. And this is the Minister of Finance. What is the standing order? Madam Speaker,
48.6, this is going far enough. This is a fabricated account of the decision which infers that I acted improperly. It's a fabrication, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker.
Yeah. So, member, Minister of Finance, I'm on my legs. Okay, so I overrule the objection. I believe you will deal with it in your winding up.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, if the member for Siparia was the Prime Minister, he would not be in a position to raise a standing order. He would have been dismissed this morning. Madam Speaker, I quote from the judgment, because I don't want the minister raising another matter like that. And the judgment says, I have decided that the claimant was not treated fairly prior to and at the interview of 19 February 2021. She was not given the opportunity to respond to allegations. The defendant, which is the Minister of Finance, decision was irrational as he failed to take into account all the relevant information available to him. He considered information which he had not given the claimant. This is the judgment. Now, you could come later and read the next part of the judgment if you want. But this is the judgment. And, Madam Speaker, this speaks to the issue of credibility. The Minister of Finance must be credible to the local and international community. When we were debating the procurement, the Minister of Finance stood, and I will quote from Hansard, Madam Speaker, and it says here, what is suspicious about the minister is he attributed the delay of the regulations because he was awaiting...
that is being quoted, what, from the judgment? Or?
No, Madam Speaker, I've moved away from the judgment. I'm onto a procurement matter now.
Yeah.
I've closed the judgment.
Yeah, so what you're quoting there...
Okay, 1st February 2019, Hansard.
Good,
right.
Thank you.
Minister says, in relation to issues relating to procurement and regulations, Minister says, the Treasury Solicitor's Office of the Minister of Finance, this is 2019, has already reviewed the draft regulations, and in an abundance of caution and for good order, the ministry has also sent the draft regulations to external senior counsel for their review. 1st February 2019. Very clear. Madam Speaker, in debate, in winding up now a debate, 14th January 2022, answered again, Madam Speaker. On that matter, when asked about the senior counsel, if he had finished his work and so on, he said, the minister said that there was an error in that he had never said he paid senior counsel. I said no such thing. I said, Mr. Deputy Speaker, that we were privileged to be able to procure the services of an expert in procurement, not a senior counsel. So who do we believe? Who do we believe, Madam Speaker? And this is the Minister of Finance. You know, fresh from a judgment against him this morning. Madam Speaker, in the time I have before me, I go to some issues of national security quickly. Madam Speaker, we don't have to tell the people of Trinidad and Tobago the state of security in this country. We don't have to do that. We are in a self-imposed curfew. If you drive around in the night, everybody lock up the house. Madam Speaker, if someone come by your gate, you don't care whether they're begging, they're giving, they're donating, you don't open your gate because you don't know who is who. This is a country where the police told citizens, if police come by your gate, call real police. This is a country where the police went to church in Cuba to pray, to deal with crime. The situation is bad, and the citizens know it. We don't have to lecture here about how bad things are. We don't have to, Madam Speaker. And in this matter, Madam Speaker, the Minister of National Security spoke in glowing terms about his work and what was happening and so on. Madam Speaker, according to the Auditor General report, findings for fiscal year 2021, Madam Speaker, document prepared, I believe, by the Parliament as well, they said that even in the police stations, 2 projectors valued at $3,000 were stolen from the Brasso and Maloney police station. That's where we reach. At the police station, people are stealing. The Belmont police station a few months ago had no electricity. Do you know they had no generator working? We have the pictures, but we cannot exhibit pictures, Madam Speaker. But we have the pictures where the police went on the pavement in front and told the people, when you come, let me sit down and talk on the pavement because the sunlight helping me to write. We have the pictures of inside and outside that police station. The generator wasn't working. Do you know there are locks in a police station that are electronic? So if you don't get, of course, power, you can't open to get some very, very important equipment and very important stuff you have to get in a police station that you have no access to. That was the state of the police station in Belmont. I don't want to talk about other situations in the country, Madam Speaker. That is the state of that. And Madam Speaker, while this is happening, they are hounding down their political opponents. Madam Speaker, I called today for a complete inquiry into the reasons why the former Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith, and his family, civilians, are now the subject of interception of communication orders. Nicole Dyer Griffith, a civilian, a citizen, has her phone being tapped. Former Commissioner of Police, Gary Griffith. Interception of communication, not with evidence, not with reports, but by quote-unquote intelligence. Intelligence led to that. This is a travesty of justice. This is elements of the police conducting the dirty work of their masters. This is a road to tyranny. When you have a former police commissioner who is also a political leader of an entity involved in the political process, the subject of interception orders, warrants, on the basis of intelligence. The police should speak. What are you investigating Gary Griffith for? Is he the subject, and of what? And that, Madam Speaker, is a very, very serious matter. But crime had to be out of control, because when they got there, typical, Madam Speaker, 21 years I'm around this compound, 23 years around government. and opposition. You know, every time the PNM gets into power, Madam Speaker, you want to tell me how much minutes I have left?
You now have 5 more minutes of your time.
Sure.
As you know, you're entitled to 10 minutes.
I'll accept that with your leave.
Proceed.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, in the area, and when they come into government, the member for Diego Martin Northeast in an earlier incarnation was a Minister of Health in this country. When he went and became Minister of Health, the first thing he told the Permanent Secretary, he said, see this UNC program they put in there and so on, it's not a bad program, but change the name now, that's UNC. Then he went somewhere else and it had something called dollar for dollar or something. He said, oh, you see this dollar for dollar, that can't work, that's something in UNC, we have to create something, some other name. And they change programs, they stop programs, they suspend work. The Point Fortin Hospital was due to open in 2018. They stopped the work, reduced the amount of bed and room, changed the price, and then come back and open it 7 years later and say, wow, we did a good job. Arima Hospital, 2019, due to open. Madam Speaker, I am reliably informed that they are going to close down the Couva Hospital in the aftermath of the COVID because they closed it down before. They have decided to lock it up now because it is a People's Partnership project. We would like to know the status of the Couva Children Hospital. Well, you don't forget children. I think you oppress, you put children out already. So what is the status? Will you take a lock and key and lock it up as you did before COVID? It took a pandemic to open the Couva Hospital. A pandemic. So, Madam Speaker, they change around everything. In national security, we had the National Operations Center, NOC. Good investment there, coordinating all the actions of law enforcement. They came on the scene, they stopped that. They said, no, that can't work here. We want the National Operation Fusion Center. So they put in the word fusion, all right? Then take 3 years to redesign something. To this day, we don't know what is in place. What is that contributing to? Now we are hearing about command centers in this budget, command centers. Before, to this day, we don't know about body cameras. My colleague said, spray, pepper spray. Pepper spray, what about that? You're waiting for our next innocent daughter to be the subject of vicious criminals before you come back with pepper spray? What are you waiting for the body cam, the dash cam, the electronic monitoring system? The Minister of National Security will not deal with this. But you see, they live in their world. Madam Speaker, I intend to file a question in this House. I want to know every single member of government, cabinet or non-cabinet, who is the recipient of state security, bodyguard and police by both the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the Defense Force. It is incomprehensible to have ministers whose ministry itself are not traditionally ministries that attract criminal sight, walking around with bodyguard and security. The Minister of National Security coming to the Parliament yesterday or the day before with 5 persons surrounding him, 4 male bodyguards and 1 female bodyguard. He probably deserves more. But it is not something that we should promote. Because what happens is you get all this security guard and bodyguard and you forget that the citizens themselves face the criminal elements without VIP security. But Madam Speaker, they have an arrogance about them. Their downfall, which will come sooner rather than later, will be related not only to mismanagement, incompetence, corruption and so on. It will be related to arrogance. I want to tell the member for Tobago West and others, but member for Tobago West, today you are a VIP. Tomorrow you're just a P. Tomorrow you're just a person. And don't carry about yourselves with that arrogance that you will be minister forever. You know, it have a song, you'll be single forever. You'll not be minister forever. And I challenge you, when the day comes, if you could walk outside. Because as it is now, Madam Speaker, these ministers and members opposite, they are in dire fear when they confront citizens. Is not only abusing them in the pharmacy in St. Joseph, but on the pavement, in the parliament, in the constituency. If you all continue like this, you all will have to walk in the sky. People will not allow you to pass in peace without telling you of their grievances. I am not in any way promoting breaking the law, but citizens will reach the point where anytime they cite a minister, a member, recognizable, because some persons yet they have not become known in the national community after 7 years. But there are persons who are recognizable, and you will get the wrath of the people when you go out there.
You cautioned your own self about not going to incite anything. So be careful.
Okay, Madam Speaker, let me move on. I will go now to this issue I want to raise. I've raised it before. Madam Speaker, we got hold of a cabinet note, and I'll just bring it here, yes. Madam Speaker, cabinet note number 1971 of November 16, 2018. I raised this a few weeks ago, and there was a deafening conspiracy of silence on the part of government. No one said anything, Madam Speaker. I started to doubt myself. Did I really raise that? Madam Speaker, this note, establishment of a memoranda of understanding and agreement and non-disclosure agreements among government ministries, statutory authorities and legal entities, and the SSA, Strategic Services Agency, for the sharing and management of data to the National Operation Fusion Center. Cabinet agreed to the naming of the Fusion Center as the National Operations Fusion Center. So all the talk, they did it a few years ago. And to have a memoranda of understanding and agreement between the SSA, which is a spying agency, and Ministry of National Security, Madam Speaker. All agencies, police, defense force, fire. Why you'll want fire, I don't know. Ministry of Finance, Customs and Excise, Ministry of Agriculture, Land Division, Attorney General Office, Rural Development, Works and Transport, Energy, Judiciary. Imagine an understanding memoranda between the judiciary and the SSA to share information. Madam Speaker, there's a legal process to get information. The SSA, the police and the defense force, three arms, anytime they want to get information of any kind, the law provides that they go to the court, get a court order, a warrant, and so on. In some cases, they don't have to do that. There are circumstances where they don't have to do that. But they can do it, Madam Speaker, but there's a limited time and a process. Why do you need a memorandum of understanding and agreement with strict non-disclosure to get information from Green Dot, Flow, Digicel, Port Authority, the Downtown Owners and Merchants Association? What do you want to find out? How much is a dress length? How much is a yard of cloth? What do you want to find out from private entities like that the court and the law doesn't already provide for? The point I'm making, Madam Speaker, is that the law already provides for police and other law enforcement agencies to get information in the conduct of an investigation. If they're investigating anything, they can go and get information through proper process. Why is Cabinet, this is a policy-making body called the Cabinet, saying to these ministries and private, I don't know what law they're using to demand from Flow, Digicel and Green Dot, I call on the government today to tell us how many memoranda of agreement and non-disclosure agreements do you have with ministries, divisions of ministries, and private suppliers for information? Why do you need this when the law already provides a process to get it, Madam Speaker? No one dare answer. But you see, Madam Speaker, the Minister of Finance 2 years ago jumped up in the Parliament and the Prime Minister and told us about buying motorcar and so on. Long before events came to the fold. And it is, where do you get information from? Where? But if a minister is in an interviewing panel, I imagine he can get information elsewhere. Madam Speaker, they have now gone on to a new cause, a new area they're doing now, Madam Speaker, where they have taken special reserve, the Special Reserve Police Act, and used that to hire police from Barbados, England, and elsewhere to come into Trinidad, and in England, lawyers and professionals make them police overnight, told Gary Griffith who to appoint as police, give him money for who to lock up. They have done that. This, Madam Speaker, is an abuse of the law.
Standing Order 48-6, please.
Which I uphold, member. So if you could withdraw that, maybe you could find another way to say what you wish to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Speaker, I withdraw that.
Yes.
Let me put it this way. Madam Speaker, there are matters which are in the public domain which suggest that the Special Reserve Police Act is being violated. Is being violated in a manner where foreign persons foreign individuals, non-nationals, non-citizens, have been appointed as special reserve police to conduct criminal advice and or conduct and or influence and or facilitate criminal investigations contrary to the Police Act, contrary to police regulations, and contrary to the Constitution. How that sound? Good. That sound better, I think. I think I hit the nail on the head there. So, Madam Speaker, this is a violation of the law by itself. And I'll give the example. If you have persons from Barbados coming here, you make them SRP. The SRP Act speaks that this is to be, SRP is something you pull out. It's special. You pull it out in cases of emergency, natural disaster, earthquake, riot, all these kind of things. You pull out. That is the purpose. It is not for them to participate in criminal investigations, because police, according to the Police Act, must be impartial, independent from the political regime. Madam Speaker, SRPs are not like that. They report, Madam Speaker, to a Minister of National Security who by law give direction. And I will say more on that because I know my time is coming to an end. Madam Speaker, in the area of Ministry of Works, I just want to raise two matters. The Minister was here yesterday. He's a fascinating gentleman. I saw him yesterday. I didn't recognize him. In fact, he took a paint job. Madam Speaker, and was, sharp. Madam Speaker, Works Minister heckled on tour of problem area, September 7th. Well, I'm shocked he was just heckled. Madam Speaker, I have in my hand, this Works Minister is among one of the most incompetent we have ever found in the history of this country. I think even Diego Martin Northeast, when he was Minister of Works, was slightly better. Slightly. According to the details of expenditure, works and transport, major river clearing, $12 million estimate for 2022, reduced to 1.5 million. He could not spend money for cleaning a drain. Do you think he will build a Toko port, a Toko highway, finish the Point Fortin highway, build all these highways? If you cannot use $12 million to clean drain, how will you build port? How will you complete that? The minister says, he says to me, the member for Oropouche, I am given the wrong figure for the mosquito crack. It will cost in excess of $60 million. To this day, we have had no explanation as to what caused that. No explanation. He say Moonilal wrong, but he don't have the right answer. He say I wrong, but he don't have the right answer. He doesn't know the answer, but I wrong. So I tell him how much would it cost and release the report on this. We don't know. Madam Speaker, the OAS, $1 billion they lost in an arbitration. The government lost to the OAS. The Minister of Finance says nothing about how are you going to repay OAS for the $1 billion you sneakily snatched from them. Madam Speaker, I joined the opposition leader today. I wish the Minister of Finance will look to me. He's a man that knows cricket. When I give you a sign that they use in cricket, reverse your decision. Review and reverse your decision. You have to withdraw this budget. Withdraw the fuel tax increase. Withdraw those taxes. This is not a budget we can support. This is not a budget we can support, given the suffering of the people that this will entail, Madam Secretary and Madam Speaker. This is not a budget we are prepared to support. So I tell him he has to review his decision. He has to ensure, Madam Speaker, that this budget is withdrawn forthwith. Otherwise, the HYMC may mean something else that we dread to imagine, Madam Speaker. So it is incumbent on the Minister to act, Madam Speaker, with a certain compassion. And this transport grant really is laughable in the sense that it comes months after you raise fuel, one off as if the people will only travel for one time in their life, Madam Speaker. So that, Madam Speaker, they are facing pressure, but the United National Congress is here, Madam Speaker. We have the plan, we have the vision, we have the experience, we have the leadership, we have in place the member for Siparia, Madam Speaker, who is willing, able and capable of mobilizing this country and a team to lead in government. Madam Speaker, the member for Siparia can put a cabinet together in 24 hours. In 24 hours, we don't need much time. And it will be certainly a better cabinet than the one we have now. But Madam Speaker, this country is in need of salvation. We are moving from COVID to chaos. Even the poor have feelings too. And eventually, their tears will not fall in a drain. It will not waste. Their tears will come back to haunt you if you continue to suffer them. On my constituency, again, I call for the opening of the Ramaitres Hindu School. 7 years the children have been punished by going to a temple 14 miles away. There are children who have gone to primary school and don't know what the primary school look like. So, Madam Speaker, with those words, I thank you for your attention and I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Thank you and God bless.